Notes to
mindset.
the editors of Jacobin. If you want us to be able to get into this article, you have to cut the first 8 paragraphs of racist garbage.
By the way, if you want to publish Simone and Jacobin, we will recount all these criticisms.
No. There's only Simone has her opinions, that's it. But I definitely am a better contributor than this Levin person.
You tear down the house, then you put up the rent. You pocket the cash, and you crush all the sin.
Hello and welcome to the Red Diaper Pail, episode 43. We're recording on June 17th, which is one day after we were supposed to release the episode. This is a podcast about art, culture, history, politics, technology, and parenting from a left perspective. And my name is Simone.
And I'm John Paul. Ezra Klein is a teal psyop sent to destroy the left.
Right.
And this is hilarious to me. I wonder if he's posted about it today, but I'm getting a kick out of imagining the ghost-written manuscript for Abundance being sent through the upper crust of like the Palantir C-suite before it was approved for Ezra Klein's name to be put on it.
Do you want to share why you feel
Oh yeah,
as if you have evidence of this?
So there's this organization / company called Dialogue, which was started by Peter Thiel, which includes dozens and dozens of high profile people, and it's basically his like private think tank that no one was supposed to know about. People like Cory Booker in it, big shocker.
No kidding.
Ezra Klein, like I said, there's a bunch of politicians, media heads, a whole lot of the tech oligarchy is in there, and they've been coordinating to figure out how to fuck you over. I can't emphasize this enough, is we are all going to be in various places in technology, media, government, and we need to figure out a way to increase our own wealth and power at everyone else's expense. They are committed to class warfare. Whether you are or not is irrelevant, because they are waging class warfare, and they understand the importance of like making a plan and following through on that plan. That's what they're doing.
I think it's funny. So this all came from a document dump, basically. And they got the agenda of this like retreat that they had in Dublin. And it reminds me so much of like some of the bizarre scenes from Succession where they're all like having like they're all like in these like European retreats. But some of the retreat sessions were like how to build a cult, how to have an AI war.
Oh my god! Yeah. AI wars that's my favorite thing to think about.
Navigating World War III.
Oh god, really?
Yeah, it's very Succession and also very dystopic, and also whoever leaked it, good for you.
Yeah, but some hacker who's done this a few times now, so I expect he'll be dead soon. But
all right, well, so you scoop my horrible headlines.
Sorry, this gives me glee.
Oh,
Ezra Klein needs to immediately resign and recuse himself from all of his various media appointments, because there is absolutely nothing he could say at this point that you should take seriously.
Well, that was true, but you
right. I mean, what you could say before is like he's wrong and silly, but at least he's not a lying psyop. But now you have to understand that everything he says is to create a version of reality that Peter Thiel is happy with.
What was the thing that he and Ta-Nehisi Coates got into at the beginning of the year? And everyone was like, why is he being willfully like obnoxious about this? And it's because he's probably rehearsing lines that he got from Thiel. Oh yeah, Charlie Kirk. And Klein wrote the column, Charlie Kirk was practicing politics the right way. And Coates was like, political violence, which has always been part of like my life as a black person, and you're saying that rhetoric is reasonable because Charlie Kirk performed the idea that there was free debate. Like, what are you on, dude?
Yeah.
And he couldn't. I watched the whole thing. It was painful. Ezra didn't really have any points. He just had these very.
It was vibes. It's vibes.
It's vibes and very shallow talking points. And sometimes he engages with an idea a little bit more. And I think he probably just had his hands tied.
Yeah. Yes.
They're like, get this piece out as soon as possible.
There's two versions of reality that are acceptable to Peter Thiel. One is the logical conclusion of the MAGA movement. The other is the logical conclusion of the abundance movement, of which Ezra Klein is the high priest. Those are the only two that are acceptable. He understands that he may not be able to choose one version of reality, but he probably believes that if he puts his finger on the scale enough, he can make sure that one of two ends up winning, because he can construct both and promote them at odds with one another, right? And both of them are just as bad for you and me. And part of the liberal thing is like, I don't have to like anything Charlie Kirk said to understand that he's better than Antifa because he was not violent. That is the heart of the liberal. Like, that was Ezra Klein's job in that movement.
Quote, not quote violent, quote.
Yeah.
So if Van Jones isn't in the secret club, he's like constantly going out every day trying to get into it with his.
Vance is just the love of the game.
Please.
It's like Joe Biden. It's like, you did all this stuff and they didn't even pay you. You're still taking the train.
All right. So you told me I had only you gave me a time limit on my horrible headlines.
I know. We have a very, very good but relatively long artifact on, I don't remember what it was about anymore. Something. Oh yeah. I always spent the last 4 days editing it. We have a really good artifact on the Jacobin hit job on Chris Small. So let's do headlines quickly so our listeners don't get bored halfway through that.
They would never. This is from CNN. Feds charged 15 people with impeding agents during Minnesota immigration crackdown. NBC. They all joined an agreement, a conspiracy to interfere with lawful immigration enforcement operations. The conspiracy was not to interfere by their voice, but to do so by force. That is a crime. It will not be tolerated, from the Minnesotan U.S. Attorney Daniel Rosen. From Democracy Now!, all 15 of the defendants were members of this community. They are active in mutual aid, union members, workers, and neighbors. So we have yet another set of anti-ICE protesters getting hit with some serious charges. People in Minneapolis immediately sort of organized a protest outside the courthouse, and they were not granted access. And in keeping them from getting inside or keeping them from being near the door, federal agents deployed smoke bombs and tear gas and sprayed that orange shit. So it's kicking up a whole other round of protests. I think they're asking for solidarity actions. But this is not the first time we've seen these scare tactic charges against the, quote unquote Antifa protesters.
They're trying to make an example. And I think they probably also want a reaction. Trump, someone was like, did you know that you can distract the population by capturing a headline? And Trump was like, oh, really? And that's the only media strategy that has sunk into his head. So we're going to talk about Iran in a second, but the absolute humiliation of the Iran war is the worst thing that's happened to the administration. Being a horrible, evil bully is far better for their base, for the relative vitality of the MAGA movement, so on, than being inept, stupid weaklings getting bullied by a second-rate regional power. So they intend, I think, to turn their sights on the American liberal left once again this summer by doing this ICE stuff again. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people have been lured into a sense of security by watching just how inept that they have been for the past 8 months. I think the sky was falling when we started the podcast. And then since then, we sort of watched this sort of fascist upsurge dwindle into one that felt so impotent that it wasn't worth being worried about. And I'm not sure that might have been premature.
I think that's not true at all. I think that
Good.
I think that they're enacting really terrifying fascist policies on Americans and non-Americans on U.S. soil in a fairly effective and continuous way. And they just deliberately got much quieter about it after Minneapolis. But I was thinking about this the last night or a couple of nights ago. I couldn't sleep. It was the pure number of people who have been kidnapped and are being detained in horrendous conditions, and many of which we'll never hear from again.
Yeah.
That is concentration camp shit, and that's happening basically just out in the open, while there's this constant rhetoric that's almost like background noise now about America first, civilizational power, transmutilation. President Trump was talking about a couple, they just constantly are getting these jabs out and sound bites while running a fairly successful detention campaign. It feels like full-blown fascism to me. it feels to me like they just have deliberately quieted down on the headlines as part of a set of tactics. And like, I agree.
That would not amount to like a strategic retreat.
No, I don't think it's a strategic retreat, and I don't think it's inept. I think that they have some political problems with the midterms, and that the war has been, it was a huge mistake. And I do think that they might dial up the sort of in your face fascism just to distract from the failure in Iran. But I don't think we have like the bumbling fascists. I think we have like, this isn't Trump 1, and this isn't the farce. So I guess I think that if anything, the people who need to be resisting have been lulled into a false sense that this is not that bad, which to me is much more dangerous. And I don't think that's a strategic retreat.
Okay.
But I don't know. I could be.
I mean, I agree that people need to keep their eyes on the ball. And I do think that I've seen a lot of people online who have this sense that like, that it's becoming the like a laughingstock administration opposed to like a big scary monster administration. But that may be, I think that's premature.
Yeah.
That's my point. All right.
Okay. So we almost agree, sort of.
Yeah.
Well, keep your eyes on Minneapolis as always. Yeah. So we have an Iranian ceasefire deal. So I know like we have had one every Sunday for the last.
Yes. No, this one,
weeks.
there's an actual MOU sign.
But there's an actual, well, they were going to do an electronic signing. I don't know if the electronic signing has happened.
Yeah, they did it on DocuSign.
I was like, yeah, they were talking about the electronic signing. I'm like, are they going to open a DocuSign document?
Yep, they should.
And he's going to do like, I have to do my Trump thing with my finger. I can't just take a, like the one that autofills. That's not my signature.
His one principle, no AutoPad.
So, JP, you can talk about the deal.
They're keeping it very secret, and the reason they're doing that is because it's a major humiliation for the United States. I think far beyond what I even consider to be possible. That which is to say that it's not as good as Obama's deal is my guess. They're giving billions of dollars to Iran, which Iran requires to rebuild the damage. Is essentially a form of reparations.
Is that a wire transfer?
It's going to be what he made fun of Obama for doing, pallets of cash. It is the Iranians' own money.
U.S. currency?
I don't know. It's the Iranians' own money, just to be clear about this. It's not a gift. This is frozen assets of the Iranian
Isn't it the kind of thing where the pallets get dropped off and everyone has to stay there while one guy counts it? Yeah.
There's one naked guy with 100 people with sniper rifles. Yeah. So there's that. They really didn't give up very much. They're going to continue to collect tolls in the Strait of Hormuz.
So
they're calling them fees now.
Strait of Hormuz is open, but there are tolls.
Yeah, which is a huge advance for the Iranians because that wasn't true before.
They're getting cash. They're being promised that there will not be future sanctions.
Yep. And in fact, there'll be a reduction in sanctions.
So are they relinquishing nuclear material?
Not that I'm aware of. They made a promise not to pursue a nuclear weapon or enrichment.
And what's going on in Lebanon?
Yeah, so this is the big sticking point, and I think the most hilarious part of this is like everyone sort of saw this point coming where the interests of Israel and the United States were going to diverge so wildly on some point that Israel's meddling was going to become too troublesome to ignore or to like paper over. And if we can only get the U.S. into this war, we're pretty sure we can keep it going forever.
Right.
And they just couldn't do it. And there's all this whining and moaning online by like the Zionist boosters that, Trump would not put one troop on the ground. Like, how is it possible he wouldn't be willing to put one troop on the ground? All this stuff. So the plan for Israel was to continue to do things they knew the Iranians would not accept, which is to pound Hezbollah. And Trump has been very vocal.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Trump's at the G7 this week. So he told reporters in France,
I've had a great relationship with Bibi, but now Bibi has to be more responsible with respect to Lebanon. Lebanon used to be a great country. It was a country where you had professors, doctors, lawyers. The great intellect was in Lebanon. Now it's terrible. I'll tell you what, Israel's fighting Hezbollah too long and too many people are being killed. And you don't have to knock down an apartment house every time you're looking for somebody, because there are a lot of people in those apartment houses, and they're not all Hezbollah, that I can tell you.
Also, Netanyahu told reporters on Monday that, quote, Israel's struggle is not over, and pledged to remain in the security zones in Lebanon. Quote, we will remain in these security zones for as long as it's necessary to defend our country. And Ben-Gvir said about the deal, quote, Trump's agreement does not bind us. Israel is not subject to the United States, and we are an independent and sovereign nation.
Yeah. Which, good luck then, because that means that we are... So there's a aircraft carrier sitting in the Mediterranean. You hear all this stuff about the Iron Dome, right? The Iron Dome is a weapon system that the Israelis developed to protect Tel Aviv and etc. It has a very short range. It is basically the last defense, and it's not very good. Because once you have a supersonic missile falling onto your city, it's basically too late. Yeah. So what they have instead is they have a U.S. aircraft carrier that sits in the Mediterranean and
shoots things out of the sky.
Its only job, and it shoots them. It's shooting things down over a rock. Yeah. It's not even letting it get close. It's not even getting it to Syria before it's shooting most of the stuff down. Yep. So Trump said something else which is interesting, which is, without me, Israel would be a crater. It would not exist.
Without us, without the United States, there would be no Israel. Without me, there would be no Israel, because no other president was willing to do what I did.
The only reason it exists is because I allow it to exist, because I defend it.
I love, because he said that Israel exists because of the United States, and then he was like, Israel exists because of me, personally me.
Yeah, personally me, and that is the Trump is so dumb that sometimes he says things that are true, which you're not supposed to say. Israel is 100% reliant upon the United States for its continued existence. If the United States says we're done with Israel, we are no longer have any relationship with them, they would be gone tomorrow. Not just because they would be attacked by all of their neighbors who are sick to death of them, but also because their economy is completely dependent on the United States. They don't have an economy besides tons of money being poured into it by the United States.
Seems like they're playing some gigantic game of chicken.
Yes, they believe that. So some people are going to say that it's because of all the Hasbara and the AIPAC money and all this stuff. I think that's secondary. It's an important part of their strategy for maintaining their relevance to the U.S. state, but I think that's secondary. Their main thing is that they are a key strategic partner in controlling the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And it's very hard to imagine a U.S. strategy built around control of the global oil supply that doesn't involve something like Israel. That's the most important thing. So I don't believe...
Which means they have leverage.
They have leverage, right? And the more that they can say, well, we can get weapon systems from China, actually, and they have gestured towards that threat, the more leverage that they have in the United States. But their leverage is finite.
It is.
It is finite.
So do you follow when the deal was getting originally talked about, this deal was getting originally talked about this weekend? Did you hear what was happening domestically in Israel? And then Bibi was getting pounded by the opposition party for allowing the U.S. to drag him. Which we're not, everyone's like, oh, Netanyahu gets out, it'll be a less warmongering fascist state. The opposition party was getting mad that it's possible that a ceasefire could have been arrived at and that you'd have to stop bombing the shit out of apartment buildings in Lebanon. Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like when Kamala Harris is criticizing Trump for not ending the Venezuelan administration instead of just taking Maduro and leaving Rodriguez. It's the same kind of thing.
I would have carpet bombed
him. Right. It's the same kind of thing, which is that actually he pretends to be so strong, but he's actually really weak. He cannot, and a lot of this stuff is like how Israeli domestic politics manifests in Israel's conduct versus balancing that with their requirements of making the United States happy. All that stuff is out of balance, which is why you have all this crazy stuff happening. But they bombed Beirut 2 hours before this deal was supposed to be signed. Right, 2 hours. Not like Trump said, not some random place in southern Lebanon, in Beirut.
I know the DocuSign email was slowly making its way through the interweb tubes, and boom. But they signed it. You're saying? Should we fact check that?
It is signed.
Okay. And there hasn't been and Lebanon hasn't been struck since. But
no, it has. I mean,
and we're gonna release this, and by the time we release it, who knows?
Yeah, they'll be back at war. I think. I mean, Trump took a bath on this deal. It'll be the single greatest humiliation.
But think of how much money he made the stock market out of it.
That's true. It's, I guess, if you made billions of dollars, it's. I mean, on the one hand, you want to say he is fully responsible. He was an idiot for doing this, and there's no excuse for it. But a bunch of very dumb, very vile, evil people talked him into this, and the one good instinct he's ever had is this has got to stop. So I hesitate to give him too hard a time about agreeing to a deal which is humiliation, but the position of Iran is so much better than it ever was before. And there's all these things you can say about like the nature of asymmetric warfare against all imperialists, but certainly the US. Like all of the things they were able to extract out of all of these countries, including Iran, was the threat of doing this, right? And no one knew what that would look like, how far the US would go, whether anyone could do anything to stop them, right? Like they have all this technology, they have all these missiles. We now have in practice, actually, you can punch back and they will back down on the table for everyone to see. Like the threat of this was so much more effective than it in reality. And that is a million times more complex now because the United States is in decline. And also the addition of this drone warfare stuff, which is they're extremely cheap and they make aircraft carriers obsolete. What does that mean for a U.S. military, which is almost all of their cards are in air superiority fighters, missiles, and aircraft carriers, when a swarm of drones, which cost a fraction of the price, like all asymmetric warfare seems to favor the weaker party. And that might be the truth for the next 50 years, right? And all they've done is provide an opportunity to prove that. So hold on to your butts, because no one is going to be pushed around by the United States anymore.
Were you at the Dublin retreat where they talked about the transformation of warfare and how to prepare for World War III?
No. That's what they were talking about.
Yeah,
though.
probably. Okay, so one more horrible headline. The U.S. Department of Education, so this one's a little wonky, and it does have like a bunch of little details, so I'm going to read a portion here.
Okay.
The U.S. Department of Education has begun outsourcing responsibility for overseeing the nation's special education system and enforcing civil rights law in school to other federal agencies, after months of previewing the dramatic efforts to restructure these core functions. Department officials announced the moves made possible by 4 new interagency agreements on Tuesday morning to advocacy group representatives, and on Tuesday afternoon to the general public. The Education Department office that oversees special education and employment programs for adults with disabilities will move to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The U.S. Department of Justice will take the Ed Department's Office for Civil Rights, Student Privacy Enforcement, which Simone has a piece about on Substack, and a quartet of equity assistance centers that help K-12 schools with desegregation efforts. Department officials have teased many of these moves for over a year. The Conservative Policy Agenda Project 2025, which has guided many Trump administration actions, recommended moving special education and civil rights enforcement to these new agencies. So this is like, I guess the one way to put this is that they finally made the move that they've been saying they've been making. So there's been headlines about the sort of gutting of the education department, and in particular, like what are they going to do with special education, civil rights office, and there's been layoffs and stuff. But this is they finally made the final move to like switch the agencies, which is a horrible headline. It's not clear what the actual impact's going to be yet, because like the states can pick up some of these things, and how the other agencies will handle it is obviously not known yet. But it's definitely following the playbook.
Yeah, I mean, it's I hopefully the safe step in, because they're trying to end people's protections, and this is what I'm going to do. This is like this administrative crap.
Well, and with that, on to the artifact.
All right, on to the artifact.
But candles will burn, and time will reveal all that you've done and the money you steal. The suffering you're causing gives you no pause for thought. Got your claws in the dead summer's heart. Birds will return, as the birds always do. When they come home to roost, they'll feast on you.
You have the artifact this week?
I do. It's my turn. I have selected the Blazing Hot review of Chris Small's book by Jacobin.
Chris Smalls has a book.
Yes, he does. So
I thought it was just a piece.
It was just
eviscerating him.
Just for the love of the game. So Chris Smalls, if you are like, I know that name, why do I know that game? Chris Smalls was the man who organized a successful unionization effort at an Amazon warehouse in 2022.
The Amazon Labor Union founder.
Yes, and was something of a national celebrity for that effort for a little while, and then has since sort of dropped off the face of the map, and that's partly because the subsequent efforts to do collective bargaining with Amazon sort of didn't amount to much.
Well, he's had things to say about Gaza flotillas and general strikes on social media.
So part of the debate that this article has ignited are the things he's done since valuable? Is it just all self-promotion and influencer shit? But I'm just pointing out that like his national profile has declined some since 2022.
Okay.
This article has sparked a ton of backlash on Jacobin and the writer, whose name is Annie Levin. People calling her a racist, and that the article is explicitly racist. Some takes about the allegiances of Jacobin and the DSA leadership and why Chris Smalls is a target for those reasons, which I'm sympathetic to both of those. Although I think that she's just a racist. I think misses some of the interesting criticism that she does make in the piece. So the reason I picked it is I think it sparks an interesting conversation about what it means to be a political organizer in this time. Also, given that like the only growing economy is data centers and like social media stardom. So like there's a sense in which like once you reach a certain level of fame in the organizer space, you've kind of transcended the working class to a certain extent. Because you can actually live off the money of just being famous on social media. And I think there's something about that critique in here, and there's also some interesting things about like adventurism and solidarity building and like discipline versus like more like showy in your face tactics. And I think the article does a good job of like parsing through some of this, but the feeling I got reading it was that it was a attempt to attack him on legitimate grounds for the wrong reasons. So that was sort of my sense of it. But anyway, that I picked it because I wanted to have a little bit more of a conversation about like what it means to do political organizing and like the attitudes and like disposition and approach. Good.
So you're gonna read the article?
I'm not going to read the takes because I think they're less interesting than yours will be.
Okay.
All right. The rise and fall of Chris Smalls. Chris Smalls shot to prominence for playing a key role in the shock union win at a New York Amazon warehouse. He was charismatic and energetic at a time when labor needed both. But in the years since, his own ego has overwhelmed his political contributions.
She figured that out from his book?
I guess so. Review of When the Revolution Comes, A Fight for the Future of the Working Class by Chris Smalls. Christian Smalls' memoir, When the Revolution Comes, A Fight for the Future of the Working Class, comes out at an odd time in the career of the former Amazon Labor Union president. The book, ghostwritten by author Carville Wallace, I think that's kind of a dig, right? Ghostwritten.
Well, if you're doing a book review, you do have to identify that. But this is not a book review, which I think perhaps pisses me off the most.
Was sold to Pantheon in 2022 shortly after the historic National Labor Relations Board election victory for the Amazon Labor Union. Today, Smalls is unaffiliated with the union, which he exited in 2024 following a period of internal factionalism. Since leaving his post, Smalls has appeared on talk shows, given speeches, and heroically joined aid missions to Gaza and Cuba. Recently, he's been in the news again for breaking into the Met Gala to draw attention to Jeff Bezos' role as the event's sponsor.
Is this tongue-in-cheek? Or are we thinking they are giving him credit for...
She gives him credit where credit is due, but basically says that what he's involved in all of these things, and he should be, but is he involved for the right reasons? As the other things he's doing.
Okay, so it is
yeah.
Heroic to be on the aid missions.
It is, and I think it's just like it's sort of like a wave aside. Like I know he did all these things,
just not good enough.
It's not good enough.
For Annie Levin.
Presidents of union locals are rarely celebrities, but as the charismatic leader, that's the second time she's used the word charismatic. If you're keeping track,
but it's not actually like historically true that union leaders aren't celebrities and charismatic. Like they have a long labor history of them being so. It's just,
union locals probably is true.
Well, you have to be a union local first.
I mean,
you don't go from like not interesting and charismatic to the one that's on top of everything and being interesting and charismatic. Like, where do you think Big Bill Haywood started? Like at a local?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Actually, if they even did that, then I don't know enough.
It was just the country was so small. It was just one big union.
one big local. But as the charismatic leader of the first union to win an NLRB election at an Amazon warehouse, Smalls was boosted to left-wing pseudo-stardom. A former party promoter, Smalls was...
Like, are we talking about political parties or like he promoted like parties? Like fun parties?
Fun parties.
That's a little racist.
So this is
like
the anti-black coding woven throughout this, and I think the use of the word charismatic multiple times is part of that. And I'm sympathetic to the
I mean, does Jacobin not have editors anymore?
I
Like,
think
it's
they
really
do. I think
easy
that's,
to just read it, and you think it's on purpose, and they're okay to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The former
A former
tequila salesman.
Well, it's related, I think, in her mind. A former party promoter, Smalls was entirely in his element as the much sought after spokesman for the ALU. There's an interesting contrast here with like you don't normally find people to be charismatic leaders who are union local presidents, and at the same time, that's exactly the skill set that they needed, right? So, why would that be? In the year that followed the election, Smalls was everywhere, on picket lines, speaking at the Labor Notes Conference, here in Jacobin, on The Daily Show, and being photographed with Zendaya at the Time 100 Gala. For a brief period, Smalls helped bring the labor movement into the mainstream. As someone who came from the working class and made organizing seem glamorous and thrilling, he seemed like the type of leader the labor movement had needed for decades.
Oh my God, this is...
Yeah. His flashy personal style, pairing gold grills and chains with union merchandise and political streetwear, transformed the ALU into something like a fashion brand.
I'm pretty sure this is racist. Like
Something like a fashion brand, except for the fact that the ALU was not a fashion brand. It was not making private money, but was like...
I can't believe they published this.
No.
You just cut this paragraph. If you have a point to make, you don't need this paragraph. Also, what's wrong with making like public appearances and wearing clothes and expressing yourself in a way that feels good to your identity while you're supporting a union that, you know, is a huge deal for the history of labor organizing the country?
Yeah.
Like, what's the problem here?
I mean,
and then she's going to say, oh, there wasn't a problem there, but then he didn't do enough. But why set this whole deceit up?
Mm-hmm. It's innuendo. It's like, I'm not explicitly criticizing, but I'm going to tell you these things, and sort of like, it's with a wink that like, from the beginning you could tell where this was going.
Is the Jacobin audience mainly old white boomer men?
I think it might be a lot of young people who are susceptible to this thinking about unions, which is kind of reactionary, which is that unions are a place where working class white men who are older than your father
do serious things.
And that,
well, obviously that is not reflective of the working class and needs to be broken down immediately.
Right.
I mean, this reads like a piece where your like old white uncle would be like, yeah, why was he on the TikTok?
Yeah. So what you get is an allegiance between the DSA leadership, specifically the leadership.
You mean the editorial board of Jacobin?
Yeah. The Democratic Party operatives and the union leadership, which is benefits from maintaining an idea of what unions are and what they aren't, who they're for and who they're not for, and what kind of militancy there is allowed in the...
I see how that benefits the Democratic Party. I don't see how that benefits any alternative socialist party.
Because DSA is legitimized by their proximity to the Democrats. That's always been the fatal flaw in this whole thing.
Because they run Democrats?
Because they run Democrats, because they have institutional authority, and I think they have proposed this idea to people that serious political work has to be electoral, and you have a bunch of people who do nothing but talk on the internet. Those people are not serious. And then you have people who run candidates and try and actually win power, quote unquote, and those people are serious. So their proximity to the Democrats and their ability to force the Democrats to like acknowledge that AOC exists is proof of their seriousness, right? This is a very similar dynamic that played out in like the German SDP, where like we're the serious people at the table and we need to stay at the table, and that means like playing this game, right? Where we have real relationships with like business union presidents, right? The like old school people.
Yeah, I get that. I think the argument for the mainstream Democrats is straight on. I don't know that you've made a true logical argument that this is also good for DSA. DSA is not the primary relationship for these unions. The Democrats still are. I don't know if the DSA can cozies up to it that much. So why not be in favor of alternative, non-elite organizing?
So let's read and see if it we'll see if it comes into focus.
Well, I don't anticipate that she has a very good argument, but we'll...
Like a music act, Smalls and his ALU cohort toured the country,
That is so racist.
Spreading the good news of worker organizing to Amazon warehouses and university campuses. In New York City in 2022, I saw him numerous times pull up to picket lines in a convertible, decked out head to toe in eye-catching ALU union drip.
Oh my God.
During Small's brief rise to prominence, however, it soon became apparent that all was not well within his union. After a new union wins its election, the race to contract bargaining begins. In strong unions, this involves what the late labor strategist Jane McAlevey referred to as structure tests. These include surveying membership to determine what is desired in a contract, developing new leaders, and organizing escalating demonstrations up to and including a strike, all aimed at building supermajorities of workers who can bring management to the bargaining table, extract concessions, and build worker power. At the ALU, during this vital period after the union's initial win, Smalls was not in the warehouse poring over lists and preparing the Amazon workforce for a battle against the boss. He was instead transforming into a celebrity and traveling the country to help other Amazon warehouses unionize.
Ostensibly.
Right.
Of course, I mean, what a word.
Then
I haven't looked into whether he was in fact helping them unionize.
well, she does, but
Okay.
she, that was all.
None of them
covered.
were successful, and it's his fault, not the fact that he's going up against Amazon.
Yeah. Then LDJ5, the Amazon sorting center on Staten Island, right beside JFK 8, lost its own NLRB election.
Mm-hmm.
This was soon followed by another loss at Albany Warehouse ALB1.
Yep.
According to the New York Times, when McAlevey was leading trainings with JFK 8 organizers, she brokered a promise from Smalls to pull back on traveling and backing bids at other warehouses, and instead to focus on the contract fight at home. Smalls, the Times writes, almost immediately broke the promise by supporting an election petition in Los Angeles. Smalls told the Times that McAlevey's experience was not relevant to Amazon workers. Mm-hmm. Connor Spence, the ALU treasurer, today union president, told Labor Notes that at JFK 8 itself at this time, worker committee meetings had become few and far between and soon stopped altogether. Within the year following the election victory, ALU organizers, including Spence, formed a reform caucus within their union and filed an NLRB complaint against Smalls for refusing to hold officer elections. While vague on the details, the chapter in Smalls' memoir that deals with these events, titled No One to Trust, shifts blame from the lost union elections at LDJ5 and ALB1 onto Spence and the caucus. He describes these, quote, professional activists who joined JFK 8 specifically to unionize as having a, quote, white leftist mindset and not understanding the mainly black and brown Amazon workers.
Okay, so this is obviously complicated. He is not a trained political organizer. He's not a professional. So there are professional organizers that join companies to unionize based on particular playbooks. And obviously that's not how Chris Smalls came up.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising to me that you're going to have messy, complicated ideas about how what he believes is effective organizing. McAlevey is very, very well respected. She has very, not traditional, but like sort of classical labor organizing ideas and chops. And it's good that they were working together. It's not surprising at all that there was disagreements about how this should happen. And they were under enormous pressure because they were trying to unionize basically ununionizable spaces in a gig economy with Jeff Bezos spending every piece of change he could find to destroy them, probably up to and including writing this piece. And so this is to me is not like breaking news. This is to me is not an indictment of either Smalls or the people he was organizing with on the ground.
Yeah.
No duh.
I think you're right. Like, there's the Captain Picard quote, which is something like, "It's possible to do everything right and still lose." Like, the fact that you lost doesn't mean you made a mistake. Like, there was two competing strategies here. One was to broaden the fight as quickly as possible, and one was to sharpen the fight at this particular union, right? And I guess the old head union organizers, based on their experience, preferred the former.
And they also felt they needed him to do it, which is also that's an assumption.
Right.
You could
just do it without him, right?
And let him there's a many ways
Divide
this can happen.
Yeah. I think that this should have been probably a more democratic conversation in the union about what is our strategy in growing this union versus like strengthening this union. I don't know if that happened. I think that's like
It's a very transient workforce. They're up against, I mean,
yeah.
that one of the reasons that there's so little successful unionizing and why Chris Smalls was such a big deal is it was sort of like an incredible success in the midst of very, very, very bad odds.
Yeah.
So the bad odds didn't go away once they got the NLRB vote.
Yes.
They just intensified.
Yeah. And you can't exactly say that these old school union organizers, or what he calls professional activists, had a lot of success in this arena either. Right. So they have a lot of experience to draw on, but not of winning against Amazon.
No, they haven't won against Amazon.
So I think, I mean, there's something to the idea that like people elected him for a reason. I'm assuming that he spoke to something that was important to them outside of like, I don't know, she casts this in very racialized terms, and I guess so does Smalls, but there was something about him which spoke to like what a union could be in like culturally what it could be as opposed to what it had been.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important element to this whole conversation, that like the union of like coal miners from the 1950s is over. Now it needs to be like one that recognizes a new working class, a new type of working class, which I guess that they're sort of slow to do. And that I think is what he means when he says that these are like white leftist mindset, is they don't see black workers. They see black workers as important to organize, but they don't understand them as having unique contributions as much as they are needing of being reformed basically into like classic workers.
Do you have any response as someone who cares about what labor organizing needs to look like in the United States moving forward to Chris Smalls and or anyone who's demonstrating like a different approach or a different like feel or a different sort of success level with workers that previously you were not having success with?
Yeah.
To do anything in the face of that except for be like, I'm curious about that, let's learn more, is problematic to me. And to just be like, it was wrong. He was wrong, and he must be an egotist, and that was just, he's a flash in the pan. He got lucky once. You might not be right, but isn't it our duty to understand what's going on?
I think criticize everything.
But you can't criticize something effectively if you've not been curious about it.
Right. I think her failure here is she really doesn't grapple with this in anything besides a super superficial way, and she's asking you to grapple with it in an extremely superficial way. Yes. With all this innuendo.
Right.
His approach, the way she's describing his approach actually reminds me of Subcomandante Marcos, which is to take like the cultural moment you're in and produce more culture, but in a way that is like explicitly revolutionary, explicitly counter to, like when she says it's like a clothing brand. It is like a clothing brand if you strip out the profit motive and say it's what we're going to do is we're going to take these cultural tropes and we're going to invert them because we're going to own them in such a way that you can't even profit off of it because it's for a union. So that's the whole point. It's a cultural performance which undermines like all the problems with a clothing brand. Right.
So if you
which is exploited workers.
And the reason that Subcomandante Marcos does that is because culture is a very important part of how humans like understand things and connect with one another.
Right.
Two things, I think. One is I don't even buy that he was like that much in his drip, because I don't think that she is. I don't know. People who have more experience with Chris Smalls, you can correct me, but this comes off as a very deliberate. A piece that's deliberately overemphasizing that. So I'm like not even going to believe it at face value. That's how kind of racist and tropey I think she's being. Second of all, she has had an enormous amount of time to get curious and then do real criticism. She is not trying to do this in real time. She's doing it 5 years later, and she is not giving us any of that. And for the labor organizers on the ground with him, maybe they were less able to be curious, and maybe they did have valid criticisms. But you and I both know what it probably felt like when he got that success of all the freaking professional activists that swooped in and started telling him how to do things.
Yeah.
And not just telling him how to do things, telling all his comrades how to do things.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that's probably not going to be a successful mode to operate in. So who's failing here?
Yeah.
If this is a failure, it's his failure and other people's failures all at the same time.
I agree with that. I think there's a little bit of both going on. In defense of his fashion sense, I'm just scrolling through his Instagram. Dude, when he posts pictures of himself, dude is blinged out. So this is his public image, which he's actively fostering. and I don't have any problem with it at all.
I mean, he looks good. Maybe he just realizes he's...
Yeah, that looking good is part of the... I think, like, on the Subcomandante Marcos thing, I think there is a criticism...
He's a Knicks fan. Must be having a good week.
Yeah, but he is. I think there is a critique you can make of the Zapatistas, which is that it was too culturally focused, and that was great for like publicizing it, but there was other things that they should have been more focused on. So you could make the same argument of Chris Smalls as well, I guess, but first you have to like have a serious investigation of this, and not just like sort of point it out without saying anything. Like, oh, did you know that he was in Bling? I'm not going to say anything about that, but you can read between the lines of what I think about it. It seems to me like deeply unserious, and I agree with you completely that like I think that the working class should take seriously expertise. They should take their own expertise seriously, and they should take other people's expertise seriously. So that means like I really know how to do my job well, right? That should be valued. And here's a guy who's unionized in the past. They know what they're doing. That should be taken seriously. And some of that is like getting over some of the ways that capitalism trains us to think, which is like, it's about glory. It's about me. It's about not being talked down to. And then you have this racial division, which is intentionally put there by the ruling class, so people are suspicious of one another from the get-go. I
totally believe that there was all sorts of messiness and not greatness that was happening on the ground while they were navigating this.
Yeah. But
expectedly so.
But the key thing is like, because I believe that workers should be like that, doesn't mean that I expect them to be like that as if by magic. Like there's a trajectory from here to there that everyone is responsible for, right? So if you have this dynamic where he's literally saying that they have a white leftist mindset and do not understand Black and brown Amazon workers, something has gone wrong in multiple ways, right? And I don't think it's just like his ego.
I agree.
Also, this sounds like a coup d'etat, doesn't it? She's describing a coup d'etat where they tried to usurp
to cut him out
by going to the board. They went to the principal and said, he's not letting us vote him out.
So and they clearly had a difference in strategy, and they wanted him out. And like, those things can happen, and that is also okay. But I imagine that he probably had feelings about that. I also do think there's a thing here. I just scrolled his Instagram feed as well. People are uncomfortable with how, I think, a certain type of way that Black people perform like celebrity or success. So he has a book out. He has a large Instagram presence, and he is dressing the way he wants to dress, and he's posting, him on the subway with his book. And it is a certain type of performance of celebrity that is very coded Black. And you can imagine one that's coded white or coded like millennial white, like labor nerd that doesn't look like this, but it's still the same thing. It's a performance of celebrity. Exactly. It's self-centered. It's about telling your book. You're feeling real good about yourself. Maybe all positive things. Maybe some like, oh yeah, you're really putting yourself front and center over the movement. Yeah. And you would not blink an eye because you'd be like, oh, look at that guy is, tastefully sitting in a cafe. Yeah. Right. Wearing a sweater
or if you were outside that culture, you might look at that and immediately see what it is and kind of feel disgusted by it.
Right. And so the amount of she's leaning so heavily on that innuendo that Jacobin should be ashamed.
Yeah.
For having
I think they probably do regret.
They probably should take it. They should probably issue a statement. Yeah.
Well, all right. So we're going.
Like what? What's the real problem here?
Well,
also, if he is not the organizer for you anymore, like fine, move on.
Well, he wrote this book that has to be reviewed.
We have to trash the book.
We have to. So far they have. Yeah. She just started talking about the book, and it shifts blame. Like it's not possible that Spence and the caucus could have been to blame. It had to be. Well, that's just him blaming other people.
But what should be talking about here, right? But like we said, there is probably not one person to blame here. There was a failure across many parties, and they all failed at taking advantage of a moment, and they all should be trying to learn from it. So we can all be better. Mm-hmm. This is like the synthesis versus like just hunkering down on your side and defending it. Yeah. Like, what is the end game here for any of these people, including, both him, and you mean like, well, maybe his end game is selling books, fine. But what's the end game for her and for Spence and for McElvey?
It's to call out and expel the wreckers. That's what this is an attempt to do, or at least that's what it's painting itself as.
Right. Well, she sounds like a wrecker.
Oh, and In the
She's
map,
literally a wrecker. She is doing
well, she's
a hit
reporting
job in
on
the
the wreck.
press.
She's doing a post-mortem on wreckage, and she's identifying a culprit. And I don't trust her motivations, but that's what she's doing here. It's like,
I mean, you don't trust her takes either. You don't trust her motivations, her takes, her ability to describe what's going on. Notes to
Mindset.
the editors of Jacobin. If you want us to be able to get into this article, you have to cut the first 8 paragraphs of racist garbage.
by the way, if you want to publish Simone and Jacobin, we will recount all these criticisms.
No.
we're
There's
not.
only Simone has her opinions, that's it. But I definitely am a better contributor than this Levin person.
In the memoir, Smalls defends his actions during this period. He writes that he was not receiving a salary from the union and therefore had to accept speaking engagements to afford to live and feed his children.
Unlike those professional activists
Right.
who absolutely were getting a salary.
Yeah. So
he should have asked for a salary
failure
from the
number
union.
1 of the union: get the guy you need enough money to survive.
I'm very sympathetic to him, though. She's gonna have to convince me of something.
He writes that his appearances at celebrity photo shoots were to, quote, plant a seed and raise awareness. Also very important, particularly when your ultimate aim is reshaping all of society and not having one successfully unionized warehouse.
I mean,
which I think gets to the heart of what this whole thing is about.
what did this may or may not be a success story depending on who you are, but what did Hugo Chavez spend all of his time doing, especially at the beginning? He sat on public television and talked.
Yeah.
And it built something.
Yeah. He writes that everywhere he went, workers told him their stories and asked him how they too could organize their workplaces. Quote, organizing for me is a matter of talking to people wherever I go, Smalls writes. Quote, and the more places I go, the more people I can talk to. Creating a big platform to promote your union can help your campaign, and having a kind of generalized labor celebrity spreading a pro-union gospel to workers across the land is desperately needed. All right, so that's the wave away sentence, and that was the but sentence.
And she still managed to racialize it.
But any labor strategist will tell you that broadcasting your message far and wide is never enough on its own. Without speaking to the workers at your worksite and engaging in deep organizing, your campaign will flounder.
Question. Did Chris Smalls at any point say, all you have to do is do the celebrity stuff?
So that's a strong
And
man.
second of all, the man successfully got a labor union at an Amazon warehouse. No one else had done that before. You think he did that by not talking to the workers at his work site?
Yeah,
I mean, that's just a bad
But
thing.
she's saying that
He stopped doing it once it
there
mattered.
stopped being meetings at all, which I do think is a problem, and one that he shares responsibility for.
But when you write a sentence like that, when you're supposedly reporting on the labor organizing, it's extremely suspect that you've done any fucking reporting. Because it's a straw man, and it's like, oh, that, yeah, of course you should do that, but that wasn't enough, and he wasn't doing enough, blah, 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 as if this guy wasn't organizing workers.
Right.
Like, I don't trust this at all.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that Chris Smalls, you say that these things are important. Do you believe they're actually important? Do you believe that they're important but secondary to the unionization efforts at that warehouse? And are you willing to say that? Are you willing to say that those things were disposable when what was really mattered was the warehouse? She avoids any of that discourse by basically saying that Chris Smalls needed to be both everywhere in the world, spreading the gospel of unions, and also doing deep organizing at the warehouse.
She avoids saying it. And if you want to have this debate, if you want to engage in this in an intellectual way with Chris Smalls or anyone, you have to say it, and then you have to be able to disagree about it, and with evidence discuss it.
Yeah.
And like, I see none of that here.
Right. It's what it does is it makes a political disagreement about what is the real objective here, and what are the most important elements of organizing, and turns it into a technical thing, which is technically he failed because technically his eye was off the ball.
Which becomes then basically a personal attack.
Yes.
Which is like, I don't know. Like, I mean, the leftists love the personal attack, but like, they shouldn't. Like, this should be immediately like, whoa, talk about eye off the ball.
Mm-hmm.
What are we actually talking about here? What are we actually trying to achieve? Can we get some evidence? Has anyone had a difficult conversation with each other about it yet?
Yeah.
Like, maybe she'll show us, but why is she talking, other than the book came out, which is like, I don't think he's going to get like a massive splash because of this book. Why are we attacking Chris Smalls about what happened at the Amazon warehouse 5 years ago? Today.
Good question. Next paragraph, I think, gives it away. And while Smalls uses his platform to draw labor organizing into the popular imagination, he also uses it to lash out at labor's allies.
Who are labor's allies?
Are you ready for labor's allies?
If it's Joe Biden, I'm throwing the computer.
His feed on X has increasingly become left sectarian and self-promoting, lashing out at left-wing politicians when they fail to give him the attention he desires.
Hold on one second.
That fucking sentence.
Left
The
sectarian.
attention they didn't give him the attention he desires.
So this is how she pairs left sectarian and self-promoting. Because at first I'm like, why it's become both of those things at the same time? And you just noticed both were an uptick.
Right.
But he's using left sectarianism as a weapon when people don't give him what he wants, because ultimately he's self-promoting.
Yeah.
So I would like to understand how she arrived at that conclusion.
Yeah, I'm certainly she has made no argument at all that that's true.
What investigation has she done to arrive at that? Did she do an audit of his ex posts and like code them?
Yeah. I mean,
She hates this man.
she does. Politicians like Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Bernie Sanders, who helped boost Small's platform from the beginning and have been great allies of the ALU, have been frequent victims of his wrath.
2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
1, I would like to see the evidence of their great alliance and allyship to the ALU.
Yeah.
2,
I mean, why wasn't AOC making sure that there was meetings at the thing while Chris Smalls promoted the union globally?
could have gone down there.
She could have gone. I mean, that's the most important thing, right? Is getting this one warehouse unionized. So why was she wasting her time doing anything else?
Other question. These are elected officials. Is it not our job and/or fair game and are completely reasonable to be holding them accountable to the ideas we'd like them to represent, even if they're not going to represent them?
Yeah,
Like
especially since AOC was expelled by the DSA for her political positions.
Notice he's not bashing other union local leaders.
Right.
He's not like trashing other unions. He's not going around and say, like doing things that could actually injure workers organizing.
Yeah.
But like the Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
But maybe he didn't like Bernie Sanders' position on Israel. I don't either, Chris Small. That's probably what he went after him for.
Yeah. I mean, the allegation here is that he's lashing out at labor's allies, he's become left sectarian, and he's become self-promoting. And the evidence for all those 3 claims is that he frequently criticizes AOC and Sanders on X.
Well, she hasn't even.
How is that evidence of those
I guess
things?
he does frequent victims of his wrath, but I bet you if we actually looked, it wouldn't be that frequent.
The memoir ends with a critique of the American labor.
We're back to the book, but the end of the book.
Yeah, this is the. She touches on that one chapter she cares about, and then the end. The memoir ends with a critique of the American labor movement and its collaboration with the Democratic Party. Smalls praises European unions supported by communist parties and bitterly compares high-density sectoral unions in Europe with the United States' shrinking unionized labor force.
That sounds like a smart place to go.
Yeah, show me the lie. He blames the two-party system for the state of the American labor movement, and it concludes vaguely, it doesn't sound vague to me, that the solution to this problem is to build internationally.
To quote, build internationally.
Yeah, scare quotes. Look, because is it because that is an unintelligible comment, or that Levin is admitting that she can't understand what that means, even if she really tried?
I mean, I don't know what
she's
political
just reporting
party.
to us what he
is
said.
she just a Democrat? Because like, even if you're a DSA, like you're familiar with the idea that labor, like workers of the world unite.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't understand what he's saying.
No. Yeah, she doesn't. She can't.
And she
all of that is left sectarianism. Is to want to build internationally is left sectarianism.
Comparing the European and American unions, United States unions, is like a really easy really easy comparative studies that basically anyone who talks about labor is aware of.
Right. I mean, it is not the case that like the parliamentary systems in Europe might support a more militant labor movement. Like let's pretend it's wrong. Let's just say we know that that's wrong. That is an absurd thing to ponder in your personal memoir.
Right. Well,
as a labor organizer, he's not allowed to have that discourse.
It's also pretty well established that because of the history of United States labor and like the New Deal, it's just a very different scene for how labor organizing in the United States. We don't strike.
Right. So
I don't think you can go a week in Italy without there being a strike. So if she's pretends to have any working knowledge of like comparative labor studies, these are very basic things. I don't think Chris Smalls is like breaking open a new like line of thought. Yeah. And she's gonna just like denigrate it like it's nothing.
Right. She's not even denigrating it.
Who are their readers? Any reader who's got a basic left credibility would be like, what's her problem?
Yeah. This is her problem, is attacking collaboration with the Democratic Party and attacking the American labor movement, the leadership of the American labor movement. That is itself the accusation. The accusation in here is not that he's wrong. It's that you do not critique the American labor movement. Why? Because it upsets very powerful professional union leaders / hacks who have failed to do anything but deliver a shrink union movement in the United States. And that's the real crime here. It's like he doesn't have to be wrong. You're not supposed to say these things.
I know.
These people are above criticism.
This is so conservative. It feels like she's protecting like James Carville and Joe Biden. But I guess we're supposed to understand she's protecting AOC and Bernie Sanders. I want to know who's paying her.
Jacobin?
Jacobin might be other than the $500 they said. I've looked into it. No, but seriously, this feels like a piece you don't just wake up one morning and say, you know what? I want to put this out there. It's going to get a lot of attention. And I want to make sure the thing I put out there that gets the most attention in my career is poorly researched and largely racist. Because I'm a serious writer, and that's how I want to be remembered. Mm-hmm. I'm a serious leftist writer, and that's how I want to be remembered. Like, she's writing for Jacobin. She probably calls herself a socialist.
Yeah, she does, probably, yeah. In the final chapter, he compares himself to Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, and Fred Hampton.
I would like to, not that he can't, but I don't believe her. So now I have to read the final chapter to see what the man actually says.
Yeah, right. He compares himself in the following way. I looked up to these people and I tried to emulate the things they do. He writes that, like these figures, he is putting his life on the line to disrupt the status quo. Absolutely the case.
Yeah.
Quote, my goal is to rewrite history, period. Nothing less. And I know that I may be writing a history that I might not be here to see. End quote.
I mean, the man, whether you like how he's doing it or not, that's what he's spending his time doing.
What is most striking about Small's memoir is its lack of tension. The memoir describes him as fleeing gang violence while attending college in Fort Pierce, Florida. Oh, that sounds like tension. This is pretty tense to me. In the following chapter, we hear about his hazily successful music career, that he exited after being offered a $150,000 record deal.
That also sounds like tension.
Yeah. I don't know how that's hazily successful. $150,000 record deal is not a small thing.
I think Levin was offered $500,000 for her hazily successful music career.
These stories cut themselves short before they begin to offer an intimate glimpse into Small's life.
Well, that is a criticism of the ghostwriter.
I mean, how does she know everything about his life if she can get it from the book?
Is she his stalker?
This book didn't tell me anything about this man. Let me tell you everything about this man. We hear repeatedly that he is a charismatic leader. That's the third time. Good at everything he puts his mind to. We hear repeatedly. That's
from him.
That's a passive voice. So God only knows. I mean, it could be anybody.
She's hearing in her own head.
She hears in his own head. Right. You're supposed to fill in. He says that before he doesn't say that.
Like, once again, Jacobin, if you need an editor, John Paul is looking for gigs.
Good at everything he puts his mind to. Athletics, music, organizing, and his only character is
athletics and music. Blinged out. So I guess what his race is. Going to college.
Graffiti.
Fleeing the gangs.
Fleeing the gangs.
Jesus
wearing
Christ.
bling.
This woman, I mean, seriously, I think that unless she is unhinged, she made a decision to bury herself with this story. So I hope she got paid off good.
And his only character flaw is that he's so talented and charismatic, number 4, that he incurs other people's jealousy. Now,
what?
This is the sentence. We hear repeatedly this is true. Not because he has ever said it, because if she did say it, she would say, here's where in the book he says that everyone's mad at him because he's so talented and charismatic.
It is
we have heard this from on high. We have heard it in my own head. We have heard it from people, his fans on X. God only knows where she's heard this. She keeps hearing everywhere she goes. She's hearing this.
I think we have to assume she is saying that's what's in the book.
She's
just maybe writing it.
Why wouldn't she say this is what he says in the book? We hear, right? It's all this is innuendo.
It is disturbingly written. But now we have to read the book, John Paul.
I mean, let's not go crazy.
I mean, if I read the book and I do my own review, will Jacobin publish it?
Yeah, probably. If you can salvage this. Look, we published opposing opinions.
Look, we
didn't
found
endorse this.
We found another white woman.
Smalls in 2026 is more of a left celebrity than a labor leader. He has continued to travel, admirably joining in left-wing coalitions in the Freedom Flotilla into Gaza and the Nuestra America convoy to Cuba. In just the last year, he was assaulted and imprisoned by the Israeli Defense Forces, detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and jailed by the NYPD following the Met Gala incident.
Sounds like a real deal to me.
Yeah, sounds like he's putting his life on the line to me. Do you sound like maybe he's serious when he says he's putting his life on the line?
What are the most serious sort of examples? What are the most serious moments in the current world where you'd want to take a stand? Gaza, ICE.
Yeah.
Bezos oligarch taking over the world. Like he's there.
What is the downside of someone
unlike Hassan Piker, who's there and also gets really paid for his media appearances, and I do think it's good that he's on these plays. This guy is probably losing money when he's on the flotilla. He ain't making no money.
Yeah, Hassan goes because he is amplifying his own status as a serious social media person, right?
And it lends amplification to the cause,
right? So he's lending amplification to the cause using his platform, but he's also gaining legitimacy for his project, which is his own status as a commentator and social media star.
Just to be clear, Levin also hates him.
I'm sure she does. Smalls is doing this because Smalls is saying, you black and brown people who were trying to get a better deal for yourself at an Amazon warehouse in Staten Island, would you believe that the guy you trusted to get that and you saw as your leader and you saw as building something worthwhile also cares about what's happening in Gaza, also cares what's happening in Cuba? And why would it be that these things are connected? Right? What is the downside of that? What could possibly be the downside of that?
Not like resharing a story about it, like John Paul and Simone version. He's going on a flotilla.
Yeah.
This, I don't know what kind of money he's making off his book and his social media presence. It's not Hassan Piker money. You're on an 80-day flotilla. That's that's a serious expense for your family. And they're going to fuck you up in the IDF detention center.
Yeah. No.
And she's going to do this, she's going to do another throwaway. Of course he's done these admirable things. But do you know that he has a convertible and a shitty old rap career?
Yeah. We're supposed to be derisive of the fact that he's putting his life on the line like Fred Hampton. And then she's acknowledging he's doing things that clearly put his life on the line. Clearly.
I mean, if this is the state of the left, we're in fucking trouble. Her and Jacobin, and I don't know.
I don't know.
I hope they lose readership.
I discovered.
I would like the DSA to claim responsibility for this attack.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, put your money where your mouth is. Don't hide behind Levin. Someone has to go and destroy Chris Smalls because he dared criticize our patron saint Bernie Sanders, who instead of boarding the fucking Freedom Flotilla and putting his life on the line, is busy saying that if Palestinians have rights in Gaza, Israel will cease to exist, and he supports Israel. That's what he said after this happened.
Can you imagine if AOC got on a humanitarian vessel to Cuba? Why not?
Yeah. Can you imagine if AOC said the Democratic Party has taken money from the American labor movement for decades and has done nothing but betray them? Yeah. And they should stop giving them money.
What if Bernie Sanders did half of the appearances Miss Rachel does at ICE detention centers?
Yeah. Yeah. But they're, unlike Chris Smalls.
Miss Rachel, her presence is getting increasingly self-aggrandizing and left sectarian.
Self-promoting. I discovered the existence of his memoir when Smalls argued on X with YouTuber Jessica Burbank, who publicly thanked Ocasio-Cortez's office for helping locate Smalls after his arrest by the NYPD. Smalls angrily snapped back, now I don't know how she knows that the Congresswoman had nothing to do with his release, and later posted a long thread berating Democratic Socialist elected officials.
I think this woman is too locked into his ex behavior.
Yeah. I would love to see what does berating Democratic Socialist elected officials mean? But here too, he shows an individualistic.
Just be clear. Jessica Burbank apparently is a politico for Bernie Sanders, and she publicly posted on X thanking an elected official for helping release a civilian from illegal ICE detention And the civilian said, actually, it wasn't them.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with
So, I mean, if I was the civilian and I felt like that I was not released nor cared for by the elected officials who have done very, very little to stop ICE detention of civilians,
Right.
I would snap back too, because they don't get to take credit for that.
Yeah.
But of course, that's bad that he snapped back, because he should have been thankful to them. And then poor Levin found out he had a memoir and had to write this review.
I discovered it and I had to read it and do this review. I didn't want to.
It doesn't sound like she read it.
So like, is there an example here of him berating a Democratic Socialist? No, there's no example. There's a link to the thread, but not like a.
And I gave the reasonable and rational interpretation of why that went down. So let's hear what Levin thinks happened.
Here too, he shows an individualistic, left sectarian tendency to make extraordinary demands of popular Democratic Socialist electeds while defaming them at every turn. So
they were using his detention to advance their political credibility.
Yeah.
They were not detained. Bernie was not detained. AOC was not detained. They are not doing anything to get themselves detained. I mean, at least Brad Lander got fucking detained.
What?
So they are riding on that to lend themselves credibility to this, like, left on the internet. And he's saying, do not take my body. My body was detained. I was in physical duress. I was away from my family. I am standing for something, and you're going to tweet about it so you get to rub some off on AOC or Bernie Sanders?
Yeah.
No. Even if you did help a little bit, I'm not giving you that. You go put yourself on the line. That is completely reasonable to say that's not yours.
Wouldn't you expect her to give an example of something that was individualistic in this?
I mean, it would be
or
great
an
if
example.
she could quote one tweet.
Yeah, an example of making an extraordinary demand, or an example of a defamation. These are serious allegations.
Yeah, she has not a single quote.
There's not a single quote that paints this. You're just supposed to take her word for it, right? Which I guess the thread that she's referring to is 95 tweets long. So I guess you could read it and see for yourself whether
Jacobin
it's
could have
individualist.
It could have been linked to.
Yeah.
You know what I say? I say trust white women.
Left sectarian does a lot of work in this piece.
Trust white women
for
who are
reviewing
writing
what this is
hit
really
pieces
about.
in the Jacobin. Okay.
There's no legitimate demands or legitimate criticisms you can make of, and this is important, they're not just Democratic Socialist electeds, they're popular Democratic Socialist electeds. There's nothing you could say about them that's legitimate. Everything you would say would necessarily be defamation and extraordinary.
Don't they know that's only true about Graham Plattner?
The X algorithm ensures that this practice draws plenty of engagement.
Oh, what
Right,
a point.
because so he gets the attention that he wants.
Isn't she a smarty pants?
Small-
He's not getting attention from an actual base that really likes him, because that she can't imagine that there are people, maybe black and brown people, who really are like following and interested in his politics.
Yeah, who are excited by him for legitimate reasons in the same
It's
way they're
just
not excited by
It's
people
just
like
that
Spencer.
he's snapping back, and the X algorithm's
Yeah.
rewarding him,
Yeah.
and we'll just take your word for it.
Right. And X is controlled by Musk, so this is good for Musk. Somehow
Levin's
him
not
getting
on X.
attention.
Levin's clearly on Blue Sky.
Smalls was a powerful force in the original unionization campaign at JFK 8 and was by many accounts a fantastic grassroots organizer.
Mm-hmm.
He helped show the labor movement that it was possible to organize vast warehouses of high turnover blue-collar workers. While unable to remain in the struggle for the ALU for the long haul, Smalls' initial prominence shows how much the labor movement is dearly in need of the qualities he brought in. Labor needs more charismatic leaders. Number 5. Smalls isn't wrong when he writes in his memoir that workers will not become labor organizers when they can't tell the difference between the president of their union and the president of a bank. And not just because of the way they look, but because of the way they treat the workers. But workers will also not organize in their union when their union president is grabbing headlines instead of organizing at the job site.
Grabbing headlines. You know, I like to grab my headlines by, like, getting on a freedom flotilla.
After Small's arrest at the Met Gala, the ALU released a statement saying that they do not condone, quote, lone wolf direct actions which aim to center one individual as the focus of what must be a collective struggle.
I have no problem with that statement. If that's a statement they want to release as the union.
Yeah, except for who's in control of that union now. Like, this seems like
Levin.
I think that Levin probably spoke more up to Spencer when she was preparing this article. Spence than she did reading the book. And they're a way of like...
Is he in the union still? Smalls?
No, he's not.
So why are they issuing a statement?
Because they don't like what he said about them in the book.
So he as a civilian did an action at the Met Gala, and the ALU that he is not associated with issued a statement?
Yeah. So
Yikes.
It's kind of fishy, isn't it?
It's a little bit, yeah, they might need like, to work through some shit. They might need like a workplace therapist.
Yeah. I mean, they were offended by the idea that he might be onto something that they didn't understand.
I don't know. There's beef, I think.
Yeah. You think? I mean, they went to the principal. I mean, you're in a labor struggle against one of the most powerful people on the planet, who is not above killing people, probably, and you're going to go and complain to the government about Chris Smalls? No one person, no matter how charismatic, that's number 6.
I am looking at the synonyms for charismatic, and she could have gone with magic, captivating, desirable.
Can fight the boss on their own, which is why, of course, he fought the boss on his own instead of trying to get the workers at his place to vote for a union.
That's the number one problem with Chris Smalls is it didn't occur to him to start a union.
he attacked the boss by himself. Charisma, number 7, on its own cannot break through the structural barriers of American labor law.
Only that talking about the difference between European unions and American unions, you do start with the NLRB. So I hope Levin gives us some information about American labor law and how good it is for the working people.
We've covered this before on the podcast, but the main problem with the American labor movement, if I had to say there was one major problem with it,
is Chris Smalls, right?
It's Chris Smalls. It's people like Chris Smalls who think they know anything about anything. It's that they respect the structural barriers of the American labor law.
Yeah.
There is no bigger problem than saying, look, what can we do? There are structural barriers of American labor law, forgetting entirely that everything they did to get the union movement started was illegal in the first place. It's not based upon law. It's based upon something much more fundamental and material than the unfortunate realities of what the law is.
Yeah, the NLRB exists to ensure that there is a brokered peace between the need for capital and the need for like some labor tension.
Yeah. It's a way for the labor to organize itself such that it isn't so
valve.
It's not too disorganized to be productive, right? It has some way of like handling its own grievances and negotiating and things like that in a way that's comfortable for all parties, which is to say legally and with a relative level of stability. And would you know it, that structural framework is inhospitable to people who are saying what is more important than this particular warehouse is spreading unionism and militancy across the entire working class.
Related to Smalls, they got the union in 2022 at JFK 8.
Mm-hmm.
They have no contract. Years later, because the NLRB's election model requires you to win the vote, and then you have to bargain in good faith with the employer, who can stall endlessly, all within the structural and legal bounds of the NLRB, which is what they have done. So the success was within their structural bounds, and they made sure it never got any farther.
Right.
So maybe he was like, this is not worth my time. I'm going to go on a flotilla.
No, I'm pretty sure it was because Chris Smalls was too busy building his own social media presence to do a good job getting the workers all like whatever they needed to be.
Yeah, I mean, you mean organized within the structural bounds of the NLRB,
right?
Because Jeff Bezos is showing.
I mean, if he was the problem, then why isn't the problem solved now that he's gone? I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, they've had multiple years of him out. Yeah, they ousted him early.
Right. So
they would have a contract, but then he did that Met Gala thing.
Right, I know, and made them all look bad by being a lone wolf.
So then they had to do a whole thing where they had to issue a statement.
I have a question. Why didn't the union send the whole union to the Met Gala? If you think collective action is so important, do you not agree that this is a worthwhile target?
Well, they probably ran it by the Bezos team and they said, please don't do that. Levin was like, no.
Yeah, that wouldn't be one of these escalating things that McAlevey would have been in favor of, is attacking their boss by going to the Met Gala and say, this guy's doing... Look around you at the excess, at the disgusting level of like pomp and excess, and we can't get a fucking contract. We're making this much. You can't do that. So he's not allowed to do it because of the lone wolf, and we can't do it. Why can't we do it? Nobody knows. Probably because Chris Smalls poisoned the well 5 years ago.
Yeah, it was probably Chris Smalls. Do you know he has a convertible?
Within our hostile political environment, only militant discipline and all-encompassing structure tests McAlevey argued for can build real worker power. Militant discipline is one of these terms which I've started to hear coming out of the DSA set. Another one is non-reform reforms, which is, I know you're going to say that the kind of discipline you're talking about is explicitly anti-militant. So I'm going to put militant in front of discipline so that you believe in your mind. You've summoned a picture, which is, this is not just any old discipline. It's not even the anti-militant discipline that I'm asking for. It's actually a special kind of discipline, which is militant.
I have no idea what that sentence means,
Yeah.
especially coming from her.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a throwaway sentence. It's like a sentence I would have written about like labor organizing when I was like 21.
You're right. It's like word salad. Only militant discipline. Okay. I agree that the importance of discipline.
But
If
discipline
that's-
to what? Discipline to like your uncle's unions tactics, to the NLRB bylaws? I
Yeah.
mean, what are we disciplined to?
Well, I guess I'll go as far as to say that like all of this stuff, he's no longer associated with the union, so it's irrelevant. But if he was still associated with the union, then this should be a collective conversation, right? And if the discipline would be following the democratic rule of the union, especially union base, as a conversation between the union leadership and
and
union
all
base.
of that is kneecapped by the NLRB
Right,
bylaws.
right.
But you should but
But like, I don't think that people should be adventurous. I don't think that they should be.
That's
There
fine.
shouldn't be a pull
You're
to
giving
personality, and they should. But yeah, no,
you're
I
giving
agree
way
with you.
too
Like,
much credit to
the-
that sentence.
right. What I'm trying to say is like, there's a germ of truth here, which is that individual personalities should be subsumed by the collective.
Yeah,
But there's really no
like
opportunity for that.
AOCs.
Yeah, right. Right. Well, she doesn't even believe. That's the thing. She doesn't believe that. She's using that as a convenient attack on him because of her other grievances, which is namely that he's attacking people that she thinks are more important than him, who do exactly the same things. I mean, he's being attacked in here for protesting the Met Gala. Is she going to attack AOC for attending the Met Gala?
She looked great though.
Only militant discipline and the all-encompassing structure tests McAlevey argued for can build real worker
So
power.
all she's doing is just like skating off of the credibility and like belovedness of McAlevey. And McAlevey is a very, very well respected like
Mm-hmm.
master organizer.
Yeah.
She also has a very like we said, it's radical and it's disciplined, but it's very within the bounds of American labor organizing.
Yeah.
And just because it's a really good playbook doesn't mean it's the only fucking playbook.
Right. And
So,
just
and
because
this
you
is,
can
again, this is a sentence I would have written when I was 21. Like the only thing that's going to work is the all-encompassing structure test of McAlevey, because then I get to be like, I know McAlevey's, she's the bee's
I mean, it's an
knees.
argument from authority. And like, people like McAlevey should be appreciated for their contributions, and more important than their contributions, their dedication
But what
and
did we
willingness to
say?
serve
What
the
did we
working
say
class
about-
and
Do you-
etc.
When
But
you appreciate them for their contributions, do you freeze them in time and always do everything that they always
Right,
did to
right,
do?
right.
Is that what you do?
right. At the same time, like, if McAlevey had all the answers, then why aren't we all unionized? Why aren't all these warehouses unionized? Obviously, she didn't have all the answers, right? Obviously, there
And
has
she
to be
does-
like
she's not supposed-
developments
she's not
and
supposed to.
experiments. And,
Right.
right, she's not supposed to. And it's possible she hated Small's guts. And I think that the subtext here is like, she was extremely frustrated with him, and Spence, who I guess lives on to manifest that irritation.
To professionally
All-
act
probably,
activist.
maybe if you got in a room with Spence, he'd say, McAlevey and I hate this man. And we have good reasons for it. He's a prima donna. He only cares about his own profile. As soon as he realized he was going to be famous, that's all he cared
You
about was
might
his own fame.
hear that,
Right.
but Spence is not quoted in this piece.
Right. Neither is McAlevey. All of those things are hinted at. So you're supposed to walk away believing it. It's exactly like your man Plattner. You're supposed to walk away believing these things are true of Smalls, but never is there any evidence of it. Nothing is presented that says, yeah, this is what he was like. It's all you're supposed to be like, yeah, I bet that's what they think. Because that's what she's suggesting.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, in the legislature, only mass politics, organizing vast coalitions to elect democratic socialists, transform politics, and rewrite labor law can make the kind of radical changes that Smalls wants.
Sorry, what now?
Yep.
We have to elect democratic socialists in order to have labor change?
Yep.
That's the only way?
This is the defense of the DSA strategy
So here's the thing.
from people like Smalls.
When I was taught how to write an essay, I was taught you have to prove the point. She has done no work to make that claim.
Yeah.
Oh, and simultaneously, this is the only thing that works.
Yeah. And that, I think, is left factionalism.
Also, really bad writing. It's also assuming really dumb readers.
Mm-hmm. Eric Blank.
Oh.
Blanc?
Oh, we're name dropping Eric Blanc. I mean, if you're writing it on labor, you have to name drop Eric Blanc.
Recently wrote in Jacobin about how the socialist movement must be social to be successful. And it's not social to talk to people all over the country, right? That was antisocial behavior. The main thing that she didn't like, that he didn't focus on the warehouse, but went all around the country talking to people. It is no accident that the only Amazon warehouse to win its NLRB election was led by a former party promoter. Smalls, like New York City's first Democratic Socialist mayor, is a former rapper who knows how to use his voice to hold a crowd.
I mean, Eric Blanc is a academic labor writer who's more on the side of like we need more of like the wildcat strikes. Like he covered all the teacher striking that was like off books, and when he talks about it being social, he's talking about it being like community embodied. And just like she's name dropping McAlevey over and over again as if she knows the woman. It's smart to name drop Blanc, but how is this proving her point about Smalls?
Basically, this thing that she does through the whole article, which is like, I can see why he was effective, because obviously he was effective for some reason, and I can give him credit where credit is due for these things that don't really matter. But what really matters is, so this paragraph is the last paragraph, and it takes the form of the rest of the essay. Okay, sure, he was really great for the following reasons, but it is a shame that he was too overwhelmed by labor's structural limitations and enamored of his own celebrity to keep using his voice to build worker power within his union.
Okay. Well, that was a militantly undisciplined name drop of Blanc. And who I'm like, might even agree with her because he's an electoral strategy guy too, but like,
well, but
the
she's
whole
saying,
piece, all she's doing is like treading on other people's ideas, like trying to like slip in other people's ideas to give her self-authority, and then just like racistly attacking Smalls over and over again.
Yeah.
There's no building of an argument. There's no use of evidence.
Yep.
There's not even quoting the book she's reviewing.
Yep. It's very little. And all of it was like quotes where you're like supposed to be like, that rascal, how could he say that about himself? And then in the next paragraph, it's like, oh, that's how he can say it about himself. He's actually doing the shit. He's not just talking about it.
What an extremely disappointing showing from I mean, I don't expect that much from Jacobin, but like I expect a little bit more than that.
Well, you shouldn't.
They turned off.
I mean, to be fair, they turned off comments. She's gotten a ton of slack, and people are pretty outraged about it.
Slack or flack?
Flack. It does seem unusual for them to get this kind of pushback, but I think like there's going to be a heating up of like the DSA's disciplining of their left critics, because it's sort of, they probably really don't like that the membership voted AOC out, right? Like this is their main claim to fame, is getting these high profile electeds into office and then using them as a platform for like DSA priorities. And they're losing hold of a movement which is more or less to the left of the leadership of DSA.
Yep.
And that really threatens their coalition, because I think a lot of people are not comfortable continuing this process with the Democratic Party, as the Democratic Party has become more and more openly reactionary and hostile to labor and hostile to issues that people on the left care about, like genocides and like, healthcare crises and housing crises and all these kinds of things. Attacks on immigrants.
McAlevey was not a member of the DSA. She was critical of the DSA, particularly in the way that she found it to be staff-driven and using professionalized organizing models. She identifies as a communist.
That's interesting. Did she ever do the only unforgivable sin, which was to
show up in a convertible
to attack a popular Democratic Socialist elected?
She must have. I wonder if she had a Twitter.
I wonder if Eric Blanc has done that. You think Eric Blanc has attacked popular Democratic Socialist electeds?
I mean, it's possible Levin has done that. Also, can we make a little project? Annie Levin has 1,116 followers on Instagram. Jean-Paul, how many does the Red Diaper Pill have?
On Instagram?
Yeah.
Not that many.
Right. So I think we need to beat Annie Levin.
That's your mission in life?
Yeah, I'm appalled by that rating. And it turns out she's not a 21-year-old. She's like a grown-ass adult.
Yep. She's a grown-ass adult.
She's my age.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what she's writing. And that's what they're publishing. She is followed by Katie Halper and Nathan Robinson. Katie Halper and Nathan Robinson, you need to follow us.
Katie Halper does follow us on TikTok.
Katie Halper follows us on TikTok. And Ken Klippenstein?
Probably not.
Oh, and you should be able to get Nathan Robinson if you try hard enough. Wow. I thought this artifact would make me angry, but I didn't think it'd make me this angry.
What I wanted to talk about was like use this as a text to talk about what organizing needs to be
I know,
today.
But so outrageous.
It's so outrageous that we got stuck with just being upset about how outrageous it is.
I mean, organizing should be social. It should have culture. It should make room for having the practices change. It should not be governed by the NLRB bylaws. I'm going to go with militant discipline and reform.
McAlevey was critical of AOC.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
I mean, seriously, it is so lousy to use McAlevey that way, because all it's doing is being like, I'm not really a labor organizer. I don't really know my shit, but I know all of you really respect this lady. So I'm going to use her to pretend like I'm in this game and to like assert authority. But really all I'm doing is shitting on this black guy. But I'm going to do it not actually even erect the intellectual argument that McAlevey might erect. I'm not even going to bother trying to figure that out. I'm just going to use her name a few times.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with Eric.
And forget whether she would agree with me about any of this.
It's the same thing with Eric Blanc. I mean, he's written a lot on a lot of these things. You could introduce him in a way with any substance, but you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like, talk about like lazy self-aggrandizing writing. You don't have to work harder than that.
McAlevey used Bernie Sanders' campaign to articulate one of her larger points about the failures of the American left, because they are too focused on mobilizing and not focused enough on organizing. So I want you to just sit with this for a second. That one of her main critiques and her problems with the left was that it substituted organizing for mobilization, which is the only thing DSA electeds are. That's all they do is events.
Do you know
and
the
mobilization.
obsession with mobilizing and like who was most successful at it? MoveOn.org.
Yeah.
Now, Levin would say Chris Smalls was mobilizing, not organizing.
Yeah.
Because she would say, well, if you're showing up in Bling and talking to people on TikTok, that must be mobilizing.
Mm-hmm.
But he might say, this is actually how you build labor awareness in a world where the organizing at a workplace doesn't mean that much, because the workplaces are transient, because no one trusts the mainstream labor unions. Because why would they? Because no one trusts the mainstream politicians. Why would they? Because they don't feel any agency. You actually have to build like a linguistic fluency and a cultural interest in organizing as workers as part of the political education. The baseline is very, very low, which is what Chris Smalls was saying about calling for a general strike. There's a level of education and infrastructure that doesn't exist. He's completely right. So I'm sure Levin would try to twist that and say he's not organizing because he's not showing up to his one warehouse. But he might have a different theory of change. Yeah.
Also, like, what is he mobilizing? Like, I don't even get
his own brand.
Right, apparently. His own brand. I mean, he's not, though, because that's not what mobilizing is. I mean, his gamble was, if we have a shot to overcome the endless stalling that Amazon's going to do, what we need to do is have a multi-frontal attack. You need to have a lot of these happen at the same time.
Because you have this mega corporation
and not be isolated.
One warehouse.
Right.
And we struck gold once, but like.
Yeah, and you might say that strategy was a loser because it didn't materialize. But you don't know if the counterfactual is true, that if he'd spent all of his time at his job site, whether they would have gotten past this either.
It's also possible that the only reason we know about Chris Smalls and like the reason that Flashpoint felt like such a big success, that did feel like you could like take down the giant, was because he was choosing to have a more outward public persona.
Right.
If he hadn't been Chris Smalls and he hadn't had that, we wouldn't even know. Now, does knowing change where we are now? Maybe not, but maybe it does.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see a world where one warehouse win was completely swept under the rug. Now, I don't know if it matters. We still don't have any fucking, they don't have a contract, but like,
I mean, it exists in the popular consciousness, a person that's like people who work for a living being really unapologetically in favor of a union and showing that other black and brown workers are also in favor of a union because they vote. And unapologetically, that's not going to go away.
Unapologetically in favor of multiracial solidarity, workers organizing, workers expressing power across international lines, unapologetically about that. And he's not only that, he's unapologetically like pro worker power, pro, like, deliberately and in real life making connections between ICE and labor organizing and the Met Gala and Gaza.
Yeah.
Not like performatively, but like actually doing it.
Yeah.
And he's advancing very radical pro worker ideas that are not about like, what do the bylaws let us do? And, you know, it's like that's important to have in the public sort of discourse.
Yeah, I think there's something very troubling that emerges from this, which is this idea of like, there is a certain type of leftist that's the adult in the room. And that type of leftist cares about procedure. They care about like nuts and bolts. They care about bylaws. They care about, it's very bureaucratic, right? And it's very non-ideological almost. It's almost like
It's technocratic.
it's technocratic. It's like that those people, their job is to like pull along everyone else who cares more about things like whatever the news of the day is. Like, baby leftists care about things like Gaza flotillas, and they care about things like the international labor movement, and they care about things like
Whatever that means.
whatever, like,
Cuba,
gay pride parade, like going all over the place in their outrage, right? All of these myriad things that are like part of like the leftist ideology. I think the reason that there's some skepticism about this is because like performative outrage, where it can exist these days, which is either online or like at these big protests that don't accomplish anything, feels very transient and distracting from like the deep kind of work that is required to actually make changes. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
The problem is that the deep kind of work that's required is not actually about like nuts and bolts and bureaucratic, like technocratic thinking. It's about taking those issues and getting people bound together in such a way that they can do something about them by like withholding their labor,
right,
or something like that.
It's got two ingredients. It's actually extremely social and community bound because you have to actually make it about people.
Right.
And then you do need to do capacity and skill building to help people understand what to do with that, which is a little bit more technocratic, but it's not the same as just like, are we following did we look up what Jane McAlevey would have us do next in the procedure?
Right. So what you should have emerge is unions which can do two things at once. They can demand economic concessions on behalf of the union membership, and also political demands like, this stuff in Gaza has to stop immediately, or all of your ports are not going to be in operation, right? It needs to be able to do both of those things, right? But the union, this upper tier class of like the union movement, is hostile to anything that's political because they know that there'll be blowback and it will be dangerous to them. And what you have as a result is like a shrinking labor movement that doesn't speak to the issues that like people who would be in unions care about. And this is like the important thing is like, at the end of the day, leftism is about activating people's self-governance instinct. You are in charge. You have all the things you need to be in charge. All the people that told you that you are limited because of your class status and therefore cannot be a contributor to how things are run were wrong.
Yeah.
Actually, you should have an equal role, and actually the people who are in the way should be gotten out of the way. And the DSA has endorsed this vision of union organizing, which is that there are experts, right, that should be making the decisions and you should be following directions. And if you're not, then you are a left factionalist who's wrecking the unionization effort.
And that the overt professionalism of labor organizing in the United States, which started with the New Deal, but has just gotten more extreme, is directly antithetical to a belief in worker self-governance.
Yep.
Professionalism gets you to more and more technical expertise, smaller and smaller sort of scopes, realms of control or scopes of work, and self-governing, community-oriented, intersectional organizing is by its very nature deliberately expansive.
Right.
And the expansiveness is actually part of its power and is not distracting because you can apply like your analysis, your understanding of what's important to people across the expansiveness. It actually creates stronger connections. But professionalization can't do that. It's the opposite of that.
Yeah. And the other impact of that is like when you are doing this expansive project where like I can actually run things, it becomes very, very clear to you that a compromise with capital is actually unnecessary. But if you are trapped in a union which is highly professionalized,
You have
it
no
could never
choice.
occur to you, right?
Well-
and all those professional people, all the incentives are, we can find a workable compromise with capital every single time. Even if that means that it's a worse deal tomorrow than it is today, their entire position is dependent upon finding a compromise with capital. And it robs all of the people that they claim to represent from a chance of contending with that.
And I made the joke about MoveOn.org being like what mobilization is, but that MoveOn.org's progression from like somewhat grassroots digital organizing to where it landed when it was like the center of the Obama presidency is like that is a trajectory of professionalization. And it does mean you get much, much better at doing things. I mean, there's a reason Van Jones in previous episode is grieving the loss of this like sort of political professional class. You feel very professional. You feel like real good about how, but you're not, you're doing less and less real work. You're doing less and less work that's grounded in people.
Yeah.
And it's
and you're reducing your own power to be effective.
Well, we're coming out of this episode with a couple of goals. One is to beat Annie Levin in Instagram followers. And two is to get Simone published in Jacobin with I guess we're going to do
countertext?
do a book review of something, but
Does Levin have a book?
I'll be reviewing Levin's entire, bibliography. And we are also going to see if Chris Smalls wants to come on the podcast.
Yeah, Chris Smalls, you're always welcome here to talk about the white leftist mindset.
As you grow,
We also don't.
You can hate us up close.
as you grow old, your powers
done and
will
dusted?
fade.
Done and dusted.
As you grow old, you're on the make, and you don't do regret. You're always out for what you can get. You think like a snake, and you ooze like a snail. Let the trail go cold as you swallow your tail. With your low rent skills and your heart of flint, telling your tales that are unfit to print. You're all weasel words, backed up by the boots, obsessed like the rest, with a promise of loot. Your pies will fade as you grow old. Your pies will fade as you grow old. Your pies will fade as you grow old. Your pies will fade as you grow old.
I love you.
Do you want to try that again?
I don't know who was doing it. I don't have that part.
What?
What?
No, the farting.
That wasn't a fart.
Oh, okay.
It's my watch vibrating.